Dating in the Middle Ages? It was not about swiping right or sending a casual text. How did people even flirt without A-modes? Were there really secret codes of attraction hidden in the castles and villages of 500 to 1500 AD? Number 8. The skillful use of music and ballads. In the medieval world, music was more than just entertainment. It was a powerful tool for connection and emotional expression, often serving as a subtle yet surprisingly effective method of seduction. Minstrels and troubadours traveled from court to court, carrying with them a repertoire of songs that spoke of love, longing, and chivalric deeds. These musicians were not just performers. They were often seen as conduits for feelings that polite society might otherwise keep hidden. A knight, perhaps smitten by a lady at a grand feast, could commission a troubadour to compose or perform a ballad tailored to his affections. The lyrics, though seemingly general, would contain subtle allusions or specific details that only the intended recipient would recognize, turning a public performance into a very private message. The beauty of the melody combined with the evocative power of the words could stir emotions in a way that direct conversation simply could not. Think of the medieval castle hall, bustling with activity, yet hushed as a lone lute or harp began to play. Troubadour, perhaps known as Bertrand de Born or Raimbaud de Vahuiras, would start his mournful yet beautiful tune, his voice carrying the words across the vaulted space. These songs often spoke of unrequited love, the suffering of the lover, and the unparalleled beauty and virtue of the beloved. While the themes might seem sad, they were designed to evoke sympathy and admiration. For a lady to be the subject of such a song, even one lamenting the lover's pain, was a mark of honor and a testament to her allure. Publicly acknowledged her beauty and worth, elevating her status in the eyes of the court. The subtlety lay in the fact that the song did not directly declare love, but rather admiration and devotion, leaving room for interpretation, and avoiding any breach of strict social decorum. A nobleman might spend weeks crafting the perfect verses, perhaps with the help of a professional poet, ensuring every word resonated with his true intentions, without overtly stating them. The lyrics would often use metaphors, the lady as a guiding star, a blossoming rose, or a precious jewel, all hinting at her rare and captivating nature. Beyond the formal performance, music also played a role in more intimate settings. A suitor might serenade his beloved beneath her window, a common trope in medieval romance literature. While perhaps less common in reality, for high-born ladies, due to security and propriety, the idea of a knight or gentleman playing a lute and singing a heartfelt melody to express his devotion. This private act, if successful, spoke volumes about the depth of his feelings and his willingness to go to great lengths to express them. It was a grand gesture that bypassed the need for formal intermediaries or lengthy negotiations, appealing directly to the lady's emotions and sense of romanticism. The popular romance, Floris and Blanchefleur, widely read throughout the medieval period, features scenes where the lovers communicate and express their devotion through poetic and musical exchanges, highlighting the cultural significance of this form of expression. Even without direct commission, the very act of a skilled musician performing a love song could create an atmosphere conducive to romantic feelings. The shared experience of listening to beautiful music, especially in a time when entertainment was not as readily available, created a bond among the listeners. Within this shared experience, a suitor could attempt to catch the eye of his beloved, allowing the music to speak for his intentions. The emotional resonance of the song would then attach itself to the suitor's presence, subtly linking him with feelings of beauty, longing, and romance. The power of music to affect mood and emotion was well understood. Treatises on music from the era, such as those by Boethius, discussed the ethical and emotional effects of different modes and melodies, acknowledging their capacity to influence human disposition. This understanding was certainly applied, even if instinctively, in matters of the heart. A lady, too, could use music to her advantage. While she might not commission a troubadour in the same public way as a knight, she could subtly request certain types of songs or display her appreciation for specific ballads that resonated with her own feelings or aspirations. Her reaction to a song, a lingering gaze toward a particular suitor during a performance, or a sigh at a poignant lyric could all serve as subtle signals of her interest or approval. In a society where direct declaration of affection by women was often frowned upon, such indirect communication through shared musical experience was a powerful, permissible avenue for emotional expression. The use of music in the courtly love tradition, extensively documented in texts like The Art of Courtly Love, emphasizes the role of lyrical poetry and song as integral to the development and expression of romantic affection, often transcending the boundaries of overt social interaction. The very air, filled with the melody of a carefully chosen ballad, could carry more weight than 1,000 whispered words, making music an unexpectedly potent force in the subtle dance of medieval seduction. Number 7. The use of enchanted charms and love potions. In an age steeped in superstition and belief in the supernatural, the allure of enchanted charms and love potions was a very real and surprisingly common aspect of medieval seduction. People believed that certain concoctions or objects possessed magical properties that could influence emotions, compel affection, or even ignite passionate love where none existed. This was not always about malicious intent. Often it stemmed from a desperate desire for affection, a belief in fate, or a yearning for control in matters as unpredictable as the human heart. From the peasant village to the royal court, belief in these magical aids permeated society, offering a glimmer of hope to those struggling to win over their beloved. The creation of these potions and charms was often shrouded in secrecy, passed down through generations, or learned from local wise women, cunning folk, or even disgraced monks. And ingredients varied widely, often incorporating elements believed to have symbolic power. These might include herbs gathered under specific astrological alignment, parts of animals associated with love or fertility, like doves or sparrows, human bodily fluids, though this was more sinister and less openly discussed, or even soil from a lover's footprint. The most common concoctions involved various plant extracts, often mixed into wine or food and administered to the unsuspecting object of affection. For example, mandrake root, believed to resemble the human form, was often cited in folklore as an ingredient for love potions, thought to induce strong feelings of desire. Preparation itself often involved elaborate rituals, chanting incantations, performing the mixing under a full moon, or invoking saints or spirits. These practices were designed to imbue the potion with its intended power, reinforcing the belief in its efficacy for both the practitioner and the hopeful suitor. Charms, on the other hand, were often physical objects worn or carried close to the body. These could be amulets carved from wood, bone, or stone, inscribed with symbols, runes, or specific prayers. Sometimes they were small pouches containing a mix of herbs, dried flowers, or even hair clippings from the desired person. The idea was that by possessing or wearing the charm, one could subtly influence the will of the beloved, drawing them closer. Common charm might involve writing the name of the desired person on a piece of parchment, tying it with a red thread, and burying it under a specific tree, believing that as the parchment decayed, the person's affection would grow. Another practice involved wearing a piece of clothing or an item touched by the beloved, believing it held some of their essence, which could then be manipulated through sympathetic magic. Chroniclers like Jacques de Vitry, writing in the early 13th century, noted widespread beliefs in witchcraft and magical practices among common folk, including the use of charms for love and fertility, highlighting the pervasive nature of these beliefs, even within a Christian framework. The effectiveness of these methods was, of course, purely psychological, resting entirely on belief. If a suitor believed a potion or charm would work, their confidence might increase, leading them to act more boldly or persuasively. If the object of affection somehow learned they had consumed a potion or been subjected to a charm, their own belief in its power could induce a change in behavior, creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. This psychological aspect. For instance, if a medieval woman was given a drink by a suitor and later developed feelings, she might attribute it to the potion rather than her own evolving emotions or the suitor's charm. This attribution provided an explanation for unexpected or socially transgressive feelings, shifting responsibility from individual choice to external magical forces. The perception of the potion's influence could subtly alter her interactions, making her more receptive to the suitor's advances. Despite the Church's condemnation of magic and witchcraft, which was a constant theme in medieval sermons and legal texts, the practice of seeking out and using love potions and charms persisted throughout the period. The desire for love, marriage, or simply affection was so fundamental that many were willing to risk spiritual damnation or social ostracization to achieve their romantic goals. Accounts from medieval inquisitorial records, while biased, sometimes reveal testimonies about individuals confessing to or being accused of using such magical means to influence others. These accounts underscore the fact that people genuinely believed in the power of these items, and therefore they became a genuine, if illicit, tool in the medieval dating playbook. The risk involved in seeking out such forbidden remedies added another layer of intrigue and desperation to the act, making it a powerful, albeit risky, form of medieval seduction for those who dared to dabble in the mystical arts. Number 6. The power of reputation and well-placed gossip. In the interconnected, often insular, world of medieval society, a person's reputation was their currency, and well-placed gossip could be a surprisingly potent tool in the game of seduction. Unlike modern dating, where one might try to impress someone directly, medieval social structures often meant that reputations preceded individuals, making first impressions less about personal chemistry. Carefully cultivated public image, supported by strategic whispers and narratives, could make a suitor irresistible, or a desired lady highly sought after, even before a direct word was exchanged. This indirect approach leveraged the power of collective opinion and social influence to pave the way for romantic interest. For a man, a good reputation often hinged on qualities like bravery, generosity, piety, and chivalry. A knight, for instance, might ensure the tales of his valor in battle, his success in tournaments, or his unwavering loyalty to his lord were widely circulated. These stories, whether entirely factual or embellished, painted a picture of an ideal suitor. Imagine the buzz when news arrived at a lady's court that Sir Reginald, known for his prowess with the lance and his recent charitable donation to the local abbey, was planning a visit. The gossip would precede him, creating an aura of admiration and respect. This pre-existing positive impression could make a lady far more receptive to his advances than if he were an unknown quantity. The accounts of chroniclers like Jean Froissart, who meticulously documented the deeds of knights and nobles, contributed significantly to the spread of such reputations, effectively acting as early forms of public relations. A knight's reputation for chivalry, for example, was not just about fighting. It included his courteous behavior, his respect for women, and his adherence to the knightly code, all qualities highly valued in a potential husband or lover. Conversely, for a woman, a good reputation was often tied to her virtue, modesty, piety, and skill in household management or artistry. Tales of her exceptional needlework, her devout attendance at Mass, or her gentle disposition would make her a desirable match. Gossip could highlight her grace, her intelligence, or her family's good standing, making her an attractive prospect for a suitor seeking a wife who would enhance his social standing. The narrative of a noblewoman's accomplishments, subtly spread by her kin or well-wishers, could draw attention from potential suitors far and wide. For instance, the reputation of Eleanor of Aquitaine, despite her controversial life, was built on her intelligence, patronage of the arts, and political acumen, which made her a highly sought-after consort. Even for common folk, a reputation for hard work, honesty, and good character in the village could make a young man or woman a more appealing prospect for marriage. With matchmakers and parents often relying on community opinion, the well-placed part of the gossip was crucial. It wasn't about spreading rumors wildly. It was about ensuring that specific, positive narratives reached the ears of key individuals, or those in their immediate circle. This might involve discreet conversations with a trusted lady-in-waiting, a courtier known for their influence, or even a servant who had access to the inner chambers of the beloved. A suitor might subtly mention his recent exploits to a friend, knowing that friend would undoubtedly share the tale at the next social gathering. A lady's family might ensure that her many virtues were casually mentioned in conversations with potential suitors' representatives. This indirect propagation of information allowed for the cultivation of a favorable image without appearing boastful or desperate. It created an organic flow of positive buzz, making the intended target curious and favorably disposed before any direct interaction even occurred. Negative gossip, of course, could also destroy a reputation, and any chances of seduction. Rumors of unchivalrous behavior, financial instability, or questionable moral conduct could quickly make a suitor undesirable. Similarly, whispers about a woman's lack of virtue or ill temper could ruin her prospects. This made reputation a high-stakes game. Therefore, the strategic use of positive gossip was not just about promotion. It was also about damage control and ensuring that one's public narrative remained pristine. The subtle dissemination of flattering stories or heroic deeds served as an advanced form of social engineering, preconditioning the desired individual to view the suitor in a positive light, making subsequent to succeed. The power of shared stories and communal opinion in the medieval world made reputation a formidable, invisible force in the intricate dance of medieval seduction. Number 5. The calculated lineability and feigned distress. In a society often characterized by strict gender roles and codes of conduct, especially among the nobility, the strategic display of vulnerability or feigned distress could be a surprisingly effective and manipulative seduction technique. For women, it played into the pervasive medieval ideal of courtly love, where the knight was expected to be a protector, a savior, and a devoted servant to his lady. For men, though less common, a display of emotional sensitivity or controlled weakness could also elicit sympathy and draw a desired woman closer. This tactic cleverly leveraged societal expectations and inherent human empathy to forge a deeper, more intimate connection. For a lady, the most common manifestation of this technique involved presenting herself as in need of protection, comfort, or assistance. This was not always about being genuinely helpless. Often, it was a calculated performance designed to invoke a man's chivalrous instincts. A lady might, for example, express exaggerated fear during a hunting expedition. When a wild boar appeared, even if she was an accomplished rider and knew how to handle herself, her distress would then give a nearby knight the opportunity to gallop to her side, offering protection and comfort. His heroic intervention, even if a minor event, would create a shared moment of intensity and intimacy, allowing her to express gratitude and admiration, thereby establishing a deeper connection. The narrative of damsels in distress, rescued by valiant knights, permeated medieval romances, from Chrétien de Troyes' Arthurian tales to the songs of the troubadours, reinforcing this suitor. Another subtle way a lady might employ calculated vulnerability was through feigned illness or delicate constitution. She might appear frail, prone to fainting spells, or seem easily overwhelmed by strong emotions. This would elicit concern and solicit attention from a suitor, offering him opportunities to demonstrate his care and devotion. bringing her a comforting drink, offering an arm for support, or expressing worry about her well-being allowed him to act in a protective role, which could then naturally segue into expressions of deeper affection. The delicate lady needing care and attention appealed to a man's nurturing side. A powerful motivator in many relationships, this was not about physical weakness, but about a carefully curated image of fragility that invited a suitor's gentle attention and concern, fostering a sense of responsibility and tenderness towards her. For a man, mild displays of weakness were generally less socially acceptable, especially for knights whose image was built on strength and prowess. A controlled display of emotional vulnerability could also be effective. This often manifested not as physical distress, but as a deep, almost melancholic suffering due to unrequited love or longing. A knight might compose a poem lamenting his pain caused by the lady's beauty and his yearning for her favor. Or he might confide in a trusted friend, knowing that the story of his suffering would eventually reach the lady's ears. This display of emotional torment, rather than diminishing his masculinity, could make him appear more sensitive, more devoted, and more deeply in love, distinguishing him from coarser suitors. It appealed to the lady's compassion and flattered her, knowing that her beauty could inspire such profound emotions in a strong, valiant man. This type of male vulnerability aligned with the ideals of courtly love, where the lover was often depicted as suffering from a love sickness, amorherios, a quasi-medical condition caused by intense devotion. The success of calculated vulnerability lay in its ability to create opportunities for intimate interaction and emotional exchange that might otherwise be unavailable due to rigid social norms. It allowed individuals to step outside their prescribed roles, if only for a moment, and connect on a more personal, empathetic level. The protective instinct, whether from a man towards a seemingly fragile woman or from a woman towards a man suffering for her affection, was a strong foundation upon which deeper feelings could be built. It was a subtle manipulation of human psychology, exploiting the desire to help, to comfort, and to be needed, making the act of rescue or solace a surprisingly potent pathway to affection in the medieval world. Number 4. The art of the prolonged gaze and subtle nonverbal signals. In a world where overt declarations of affection were often constrained by social etiquette and the watchful eyes of others, the prolonged gaze and other subtle, non-verbal signals became an intricate and surprisingly potent language of seduction. In the Middle Ages, communication between potential lovers was often a dance of glances, gestures, and unspoken cues. Discretion was paramount. These silent messages, often loaded with layers of meaning, could convey interest, admiration, desire, or even a challenge without a single compromising word being uttered. The ability to read and send these signals was an essential skill for anyone navigating the complex social landscape of medieval romance. The prolonged gaze was perhaps the most direct and universally understood of these signals. A lingering look from across a crowded hall, held for a few seconds longer than polite interaction would dictate, could communicate a world of unspoken interest. It was not a stare of challenge or aggression, but one filled with admiration, curiosity, or a hint of longing. For a knight or noblewoman, such a gaze could initiate a silent conversation, a question posed and answered without words. The recipient, if interested, might return the gaze with a soft smile, a slight tilt of the head, or a subtle lowering of the eyes, acknowledging the silent overture and signaling receptiveness. This exchange of looks often happened repeatedly, building anticipation and a sense of shared secret understanding between the two individuals. Medieval romances, like Le Roman de la Rose, frequently described the power of the beloved's glance to wound the lover with the arrows of love, illustrating the cultural recognition of the gaze as a powerful conduit of affection. Beyond the gaze, other nonverbal cues played a significant role. A slight blush, a nervous fidgeting of the hands, or a subtle change in posture when the desired person entered the room could all be read as signs of interest. A woman might subtly adjust her veil or touch her hair, drawing attention to her features, while a man might straighten his tunic or stand a little taller, projecting an image of confidence and strength. These movements, though seemingly innocuous, were often carefully orchestrated or instinctively performed to attract attention and convey a subconscious message of desirability. The way a person held their body, the direction of their feet, or the slight widening of their pupils could all be interpreted by a discerning observer as indicators of hidden emotions. Proximity, too, was a powerful non-verbal signal. In a society where personal space was highly regulated, a subtle move to stand or sit closer to the object of one's affection, even if only by a foot or two, could communicate a desire for intimacy. A man might position himself near a lady's table during a feast, or walk slightly behind her in a procession, making himself known to her peripheral vision and creating opportunities for brief accidental touches or whispers. A woman might engineer a situation where she could pass close to a suitor in a narrow hallway, or during a dance, allowing for a fleeting brush of hands or sleeves. These accidental touches, though momentary, could be electrifying, breaching the physical barriers of social convention and hinting at a deeper connection. Controlled violation of personal space, even if momentary, signaled a desire for closeness and often created an unspoken tension that was undeniably alluring. Even seemingly mundane actions could carry hidden meaning. The way a lady offered a drink, the particular flower chosen for a gift, or the direction of a shared laugh could all convey a message intended for a specific recipient. A knight might subtly position himself to catch the eye of his beloved while receiving an award, allowing his moment of public triumph to be shared, however briefly, with her alone, through a silent glance. These non-verbal cues often required an understanding of context and social norms, but for those fluent in this silent language, they were far more powerful than words. They bypassed the need for intermediaries or the risk of direct rejection, allowing for a gradual, subtle escalation of interest that could eventually blossom into a declared affection, all without ever breaking the rigid rules of medieval decorum. The subtle dance of eyes and gestures formed a complex tapestry of desire, weaving connections in the silent spaces between words. Number 3. The display of chivalric prowess and public acclaim. For men in the medieval period, particularly knights and noblemen, one of the most effective and widely celebrated seduction techniques was the overt display of chivalric prowess and the subsequent public acclaim it generated. This wasn't about whispered compliments or secret glances. It was about grand public demonstrations of skill, strength, and virtue that captured attention and earned admiration. In a society that highly valued martial ability, honor, and physical courage, excelling in activities like jousting, tournaments, hunting, or warfare was a direct pathway to winning not only renown, but also the hearts of desired ladies. A man's reputation for bravery and competence was a powerful draw, treating his ability to protect, provide, and lead. Tournaments were perhaps the quintessential stage for such displays. These spectacles, ranging from local melees to grand international jousts, drew crowds from all levels of society, especially ladies of high standing. A knight entering the lists was not just fighting for glory or prizes. He was fighting for admiration, often dedicating his performance to a specific lady whose favor he sought. He would wear her colors, a ribbon or a scarf, perhaps openly displaying his devotion. His valiant charges, his skillful use of the lance, and his ability to unseat opponents were all public declarations of his strength, courage, and dedication. When a knight emerged victorious, the cheers of the crowd, the awarding of prizes, and the recognition from the nobility all served as a powerful endorsement of his worth. For a lady to be the inspiration for such a triumph, to have her colors worn by a champion, was an immense honor, and a potent reason to view the knight with favor. Accounts from the Chronicles of Jean Froissart are replete with descriptions of tournaments where knights performed extraordinary feats of arms, often explicitly to win the favor of a particular lady, demonstrating how central this display was to medieval courtship. Beyond the jousting field, prowess and hunting also served as a significant display. Hunting was not merely a pastime, it was a skill that demonstrated courage, physical endurance, and the ability to provide. Bringing down a formidable beast like a wild boar or a stag was a public triumph that showcased a man's strength and his mastery over nature. A lord or knight, leading a successful hunt, distributing the spoils and entertaining guests with tales of the chase, naturally garnered respect and admiration. A lady observing or hearing about such a feat would see a man capable of providing for and protecting his household qualities, highly valued in a potential partner. The act of sharing the bounty of the hunt, such as offering a prime cut of venison, could also be a subtle gesture of generosity and attention towards a desired lady. Even in warfare, a man's reputation for bravery and leadership could elevate him in the eyes of a potential suitor. While less direct than a tournament, tales of heroic deeds on the battlefield, of leading a successful charge or defending a stronghold against overwhelming odds, would spread through the land. Such stories, recounted by returning soldiers or traveling minstrels, painted a picture of a formidable and honorable man highly desirable for marriage alliances, or as a romantic interest. The very word chivalry was derived from chevalier, knight, linking the ideals of knighthood, courage, loyalty, generosity, and courtesy directly to a man's appeal. A woman, hearing of a knight's unwavering courage and his commitment to his lord and his people, would view him not just as a warrior, but as a man of great character. And her hand, the public nature of these displays was key. Unlike private flattery, which could be dismissed, the acclaim generated by a successful display of prowess was undeniable. It was witnessed by many, talked about widely, and confirmed by the very structure of medieval society that celebrated such virtues. This public validation created an irresistible aura around the individual, making them a prize in the marriage market and a source of romantic fascination. A man's reputation for prowess and the public adulation it brought became a powerful, almost unassailable component of his desirability, effectively preempting other suitors and drawing the attention of even the most discerning ladies. The roar of the crowd, the shine of armor, and the tales of heroism were all part of a grand performance designed to win hearts and hands. Number 2. The strategic gift-giving and symbolic objects. In the intricate dance of medieval courtship, the strategic exchange of gifts was far more than a simple gesture of generosity. It was a sophisticated language of symbolism and intent, a surprisingly effective method of seduction. Gifts were not merely objects. They were conveyors of status, devotion, affection, and commitment, each item carefully chosen for its meaning and value. From priceless jewels to humble tokens, every gift could be a silent declaration, an intimate proposal, or a subtle acknowledgement of interest, making them powerful tools in the medieval quest for affection. The absence of direct public declarations often meant that gifts bore the heavy burden of conveying romantic intentions and feelings. For a man pursuing a lady, a gift served multiple purposes. It demonstrated his wealth and ability to provide a crucial consideration. In a society where marriage was often an economic alliance, a finely crafted piece of jewelry, perhaps a ring with a precious stone, signaled not only his affluence, but also his appreciation for beauty and luxury. Such a gift might be presented through an intermediary, like a trusted lady-in-waiting, adding a layer of discretion and formality. The value of the gift also reflected the perceived worth of the lady and the seriousness of his intentions. A gift of a valuable piece of fabric like silk or velvet could be transformed into a gown, allowing her to physically embody his generosity and taste. Beyond monetary value, the symbolism of the gift was paramount. A rose, for instance, carried clear connotations of love and beauty, while a falcon or a hunting dog might symbolize strength, nobility, and companionship. The medieval romance, Lancelot the Knight of the Cart, by Chrétien de Troyes, details how Queen Guinevere gives Lancelot a ring, which serves as a potent symbol of their bond, and his sworn fealty to her, illustrating the symbolic power of such gifts. Ladies, too, could use gifts strategically, though often with more subtlety to signal their interest or to subtly encourage a suitor. A lady might offer a hand-embroidered scarf, a small pouch she had personally sewn, or a lock of her hair woven into a token. These gifts, while often less valuable in monetary terms than a man's offering, carried immense personal significance. The act of making something by hand imbued the item with her time, skill, and personal touch, making it a powerful symbol of her affection and attention. A knight receiving such a token, especially one he could wear into battle or during a tournament, would understand it as a personal favor, a mark of her esteem and a source of inspiration. The very act of wearing it publicly would signify a nascent connection, a mutual acknowledgement of interest that could be observed by the entire court, yet without an explicit declaration. Such a gift could provide a public cue without being a public commitment, creating a delightful ambiguity. For the recipient, the timing and context of the gift were also crucial. A gift presented during a private audience carried a different weight than one given publicly during a feast. A man might offer a rare book of poetry or illuminated manuscripts, signifying a shared intellectual interest and a desire for deeper conversations. A lady might present a small, carefully chosen herbal remedy to a suitor who had feigned a slight indisposition, demonstrating her care and concern. The act of offering a gift was not just about the object itself, but about the ritual surrounding its presentation. It often involved polite exchanges, expressions of gratitude, and subtle hints of future meetings or deeper understanding. These interactions, facilitated by the gift, allowed for a progression of intimacy that might otherwise be difficult to achieve within the rigid social structures of the time. In essence, gifts in the medieval world were a silent yet eloquent form of communication. They could bridge gaps where words failed, convey sentiments that were forbidden, and solidify bonds without explicit declarations. They were investments, both emotional and material, that allowed potential lovers to gauge interest, test boundaries, and slowly build a foundation of affection and trust. The strategic choice of a symbolic object, presented with careful timing and discretion, could unlock the doors to a desired heart, proving that in medieval seduction, sometimes actions truly spoke louder. Number 1. The poetic declaration and courtly love. At the pinnacle of medieval seduction techniques, especially within aristocratic circles, stood the poetic declaration, deeply intertwined with the ideals of courtly love. This was not a direct, bold statement of affection, but rather a highly stylized, often indirect, and profoundly emotional expression of devotion. It was a complex game of yearning, suffering, and idealization, primarily played out through poetry, song, and carefully crafted prose. Designed to win the favor of a lady, often one of higher social standing or even married. The very essence of this approach lay in its elevated language and its emphasis on the lover's humility and the beloved's unattainable perfection, making it a surprisingly effective, albeit drawn-out method of capturing attention and stirring emotion. The core of the poetic declaration was the celebration of the lady's beauty, virtue, and nobility to an almost divine degree. The suitor, often a knight or a nobleman, would compose lyrical poems known as chansons or lays, expressing his profound admiration and the agony of his unrequited love. These poems would describe the lady's eyes as stars, her hair as spun gold, her skin as alabaster, and her character as flawlessly virtuous. The lover would portray himself as her humble servant, consumed by her beauty, willing to undertake any task or endure any suffering to earn a single glance or kind word from her. This was the love service, servitium amoris, a literary concept that profoundly influenced real-world courtship. The Art of Courtly Love by Andres Capellanus, a 12th century treatise, extensively outlines the rules and etiquette of this form of devotion, stressing its indirect and often agonizing nature for the lover, yet its flattering effect on the lady. These poetic declarations were rarely delivered directly and privately to the lady. Instead, they were often recited by troubadours or minstrels in public court settings, ensuring that the lady, and indeed the entire court, was aware of the suitor's fervent devotion. The performance itself became a spectacle, a public testament to the lady's allure and the suitor's refined sensibilities. This public acknowledgement, though indirect, placed the lady in a position of power and honor. To be the muse of such eloquent verses was a significant mark of prestige, elevating her status and making her the envy of other ladies. The subtlety lay in the fact that while the poem clearly conveyed deep affection, it was framed within the conventions of courtly love, which often emphasized suffering and distance, thereby many overt scandal. The lady was not directly propositioned. She was revered, celebrated, and placed on a pedestal, a position that was incredibly flattering and often irresistible. Beyond formal poems, the poetic declaration could also manifest in highly embellished conversational language. A suitor might address his desired lady with elaborate compliments, using metaphors and allegories drawn from nature or chivalric tales. His speech would be filled with eloquent phrases, subtle allusions to famous lovers from myth or legend, and expressions of profound respect and admiration. Even simple statements could be transformed into poetic tributes, such as comparing her presence to the blossoming of spring, or her voice to the song of angels. This sophisticated use of language signaled not only his education and refinement, but also the depth of his idealized affection, setting him apart from less articulate or more overtly forward suitors. The ability to command such language demonstrated a cultured mind, a desirable trait in noble society. The suffering of the lover was a key component of this technique. The poetic declarations often emphasized the pain, sleepless nights, and constant yearning endured by the suitor due to the lady's beauty and his longing for her favor. This portrayal of intense emotional torment was meant to elicit sympathy and pity from the lady, while also demonstrating the depth and sincerity of his feelings. It was a dramatic, almost theatrical expression of love, designed to move the lady's heart, not through direct appeal, but through the profound impact of his perceived agony. While seemingly self-deprecating, this display of emotional vulnerability was incredibly flattering, assuring the lady that her power over him was absolute and that his devotion was unwavering. The poetic declaration, therefore, was a protracted act of adoration, a carefully constructed narrative of devotion and idealization that sought to win affection through elevated language, public reverence, and a calculated display of romantic suffering, proving its enduring soprietic effet of romantic suffering, proving its enduring, surprising effectiveness, the pursuit of medieval hearts.